Most people look at the lack of resources. I don't have the time, the money, the know-how, and they take themselves out. Successful people do the opposite. They put themselves in the arena. They put themselves in the situation that forces them to have a sense of urgency to find the solution. And then they go on a treasure hunt to find that solution. And they don't care about losing. They care about learning. And with that mindset, you can be an entrepreneur.
So for those who don't know you, just introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I help people become whole life millionaires. And what I realized is that most people are not taught to be investors, or taught to be consumers, and therefore they never win the money game. And what I realized is that when people have a lack of money, they also have a lack of one other very valuable resource. Do you know what it is? Time. Right? Wealthy people, you say, hey, you want to go to Hawaii? You got 4 golf games booked next week. They're like, yeah, sure, let me go. Say that to a poor person, and they go, I can't afford it. Say, I'll pay for everything. Then they say, no, but I can't afford a babysitter. I can't afford being away from work. So I thought that if we're going to increase the quality of life on the planet, the first thing people really need to do is learn how to win the money game. And so that's what I help people do, is become financially literate, develop a strong mindset. And from my experience of growing up with a lot of adversity and growing up on a farm and going from working hard to changing my identity to working smart, from working with my hands at minimum wage to working with my mind and making now over $2,000 an hour to share my wisdom, I thought, if this little farm boy from Canada can do it, then anybody literally can do it. I know that's so cliche, because people usually come a place of, yeah, but can I do it? And the brain usually says, no, you're an idiot. No, you're too skinny. You know, you're too fat. No, you have an accent. No, you don't speak enough languages. No, you blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. It downloads the limiting beliefs that are suggestions by the people that we love, and it strangles us our whole life. So I've just saw people struggle, and I thought there's no need to, with the right information. And so that's kind of like my mission now. I have 44 streams of income. I like businesses. I like building things, but mostly I like helping people be a better version of themselves.
You just touched on seeing other people struggle. So to have that empathy for yourself, is that what you've gone through as a child? Those situations that you've gone through as a child, is that what led to having that empathy and trying to help others?
Yeah, a little bit, but let me first say this, is that most people, about 95% of the population, oscillate between 2 mindsets, that of the victim and that of the achiever. And we are taught to, work hard and get a side hustle and all those things. If you're in that achiever mode, take a slap on the face, pick yourself up, you failed at a business, learn, move on, which is fantastic. I teach all that. Sadly, though, is if it happens too much and you don't have the ability to reframe the event, you feel like you're losing in life instead of learning. And so one of the cornerstones of my teaching is that we've got to really understand that success is on the other side of the challenges. And therefore, the biggest skill that you want to have is your ability to handle a result that most people call failure. I just call it temporary defeat.
I love it.
And there's a big distinction there, right? Is when it's failure, people want to hide it. They have shame around it. They're embarrassed. When it's temporary defeat, it suggests that there's a better way. You just need to get more skilled or to have a different environment. And so I teach people there's no winning and losing. There's winning and learning. And do you like to learn? And most people say yes. And so you either get the result that you want by getting a great return on your investment or getting the promotion or the job or the girl or whatever it is, the car, or you learn that it was an ineffective pattern and you need to get some training, some mentorship, try it a different way. And what bridges that gap is your dream, your vision, your purpose, your reason for going after it. Listen, how many things do you do in your life you don't really love? Right? To get to the things that you love.
Yeah.
The way that crosses, that chasm is your vision, the reasons you're going to do it. And most people never really get clear, so they're not that motivated. So they oscillate between victim and achiever back and forth. And if they find enough people that are willing to also be victims, they can get together and go, the government sucks, COVID sucks, competition sucks, your boss sucks, my boss sucks, and you don't get ahead. So I teach the 4 stages of consciousness and how to move from victim and achiever into flow state, into purpose state. And it makes people's lives a lot easier.
I know obviously it takes a while to teach that. What are some basic principles to get into that sort of from victim mentality into sort of the victor mentality?
Great question. I think that, I would ask you just as an example, have you ever been doing something where time disappeared, where you're in a conversation, you're having a great time, you were with friends or playing something and just time disappeared?
Yes, all the time, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a flow state. That's a state when you're doing what you love and you feel like you're making a difference in the world, or you're doing something that, usually is good for other people. To get to that state, there's ways to do that. But once you're in that state, you're serving others, you're in your genius zone, you're not in resistance. That's why we call it a flow state. And the way you get there is through things like meditation, visualization, slowing down, asking the right questions to direct your mind or quiet your mind so you can tap into your higher purpose for being there. And I think that each individual has a different amount of time that they're in those places. I'd like to say, I'm in flow state all the time, but I'm not. I used to be maybe 80% of the time in victim and pissed off and cranky and upset. Now I might be 10 or 20% victim. So it's a graduation, it's a practice to get yourself into that place where you can attract the right kinds of people, you're open to things, and then things happen with a lot less effort. Like, how many times have I said to people, hey, you could invest with me in industrial or student housing or in storage units, but they're in victim and achiever. So they can't even hear that conversation or that opportunity because their mind says, I don't deserve it. I need to continue to struggle. And so the people that have graduated through that, invest with me, we have 60 million in storage. We're getting them a return of 100% in 3 years. Once you start getting used to that, we talked before the show at the power of your identity. Once you start getting used to that, you expect it, you see it. When it comes knocking at your door, you say yes to it.
I love it. So how do we, for people who don't have a passion or a vision or whatever you want to frame it, how would they find that? How do they go out and seek that?
Do whatever you're doing at 100%. I'm going to give you an example. When I was 15 years old, I wanted to become a pilot. And so I started taking some flying lessons, but it was very expensive. And I said to my pilot, my teacher, I said, I really want to get my license, but I can't really afford it. And he suggested to me that I went tobacco picking, where you work 16 hours a day and a lot of money in 6 days a week. And so I did. When I came back, he was so impressed that I did this, that he offered for me to become a part owner in the plane, which chopped my expense for lessons in 50%. Plus I made a ton of money, my pilot's license before I got my driver's license, because I played full out. I showed interest. I asked quality questions. Give you another example. I grew up on a farm and I got to sweep the barn every day at the end of feeding the horses. And I thought it was the stupidest thing, a 12-year-old kid sweeping a barn. I'm like, when am I ever going to do this? This is my mind thinking. I'm very sexist at the time. This is back in the 70s. I'm like, this is a woman's job, sweeping. But then when I was 17 years old and I left the house, I got a job at McDonald's. And guess what? I worked at the McDonald's with the largest lobby, the largest eating area. And what did you have to do? You had to sweep. Well, I didn't know, but I had 10,000 hours of sweeping. I swept that place better than anybody in the history of McDonald's ever did. And I was able to do the job of 2 people. I got a promotion. I got a job in the kitchen, all because I had a skill set that allowed me to do something better. And it proved to me that when you play full out, sweeping the floor or cutting the grass or being an attentive student, right? Then life then gives you opportunities. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
When you play full out, it's like the universe looks at you and they go, "Oh my God, look at him! He's working hard. He's cleaning his house. He's making his bed. He's doing the dishes before he goes to sleep. He's like he's an intentional person. Let's send him some more business." So that's been my experience.
For me, I have a very similar experience as well, and I think we have a saying here at Mulligan Brothers is trusting the process, and that coming to you. And like you say, like it almost feels like a gift of the universe sometimes. I've had very similar situations as mopping floors and finding myself in another job and being the best guy who can mop the floors. It's just very strange, but how it comes into fruition in the future. And I guess it's something we can only see looking back as well. So talking about history for yourself, you have had very successful video on YouTube of talking about your childhood growing up and your perspective now, looking back, I'm guessing as a small boy would have been very different. So what was it like growing up for yourself? What were the lessons learned after the fact as well?
There's a lot of lessons. I think the first thing is that children are at the mercy of their guardians or their parents. And if a parent does a good job, I really believe that they help fill the self-esteem by a child by making them feel safe and seen and wanted and desired and nurtured. So many people I've worked with in coaching, they just feel like, I just felt like my parents didn't see me. I felt like, they were working all the time, or they were fighting, or they were alcoholics, or I wasn't important. And so we lose our childhood at a young age and we develop something else, which is, a coping mechanism or a skill set. Some people get into drugs, alcohol, gangs, they go on welfare, they cut themselves, they take pills, etc. There's many different ways to respond to not being loved, not being protected. My way of responding was to prove to my father that I was the biggest, baddest, badass that was ever created, and I was going to show him by achieving. And so, I played football, and everything I did, I played hard and fast and strong. And my father would give me chores around the farm, and every time I would do them, he would come out and inspect, and he would always find something I did wrong. And after a while, I got tired of that. So before I would call him to come inspect the job, I would think to myself, what's my dad going to say I did wrong? And then I would fix it. And the gap between the things that were, not perfect and better became smaller and smaller, and he struggled because before it was I missed a paint spot. Now I went over, I looked, and I'm like, okay, brushed up, touched up, etc. You made a mess here. You shouldn't have, dropped that paint on the gravel. It's bad for the soil. And I would clean that up. And so I started to realize that when you are a problem solver, you will get paid because people like problems being solved. So I developed that skill set, went out in the world, and became a really good entrepreneur because of it. The problem with that is proving to somebody that you're enough by achieving is a temporary Band-Aid solution. It's not fulfilling. So I woke up in my 30s and 40s, successful, decorated in my business, did really well in real estate, on the most successful franchise, Remax franchise in the province of Quebec, 270 salespeople, $1 billion a year worth of sales, all the things you would think would make you happy, only to find out that I started to party harder looking for the next high. And so the journey of, learning the skill set, being an achiever, took me into success, but a different problem came up is because I had success and I realized it didn't make me happy. I started to look for it through partying and drugs and alcohol. And then when that started happening, I started to realize that that's not the road to it either. And so now I had to undo all those things. And that's when I got into meditation, yoga, and quieting the mind and started to pull it all together and came up with this philosophy of the whole life millionaire, which is much more balanced. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I rambled there a bit.
No, it did. So Whole Life Millionaire, that's something I'm interested in just hearing. So how is it a way of living?
Yeah, I would say it's a lifestyle, and it comes from a very fundamental understanding of when you when you divide your life into different areas, health, let's say health, relationships, and money. We can go down hobbies, career, spirituality, all of that. We have all of that. We have 8 categories. But the ones that I think need to be addressed the most, and not necessarily for all people, but if, like I said before, if you can learn how to own cash flowing assets, then you're going to not have to work. How does that feel to think you don't have to work? For most people, it's a dream, right? So we need to educate people, because I could come across a person who's 40 years old and they don't have $40,000 in the bank. They're like still living paycheck to paycheck. And I say to people, you're 40 years old. How did you get to 40 years old and you can barely even write a check for $2,000 to make a decision? Because you are a consumer. So we have to definitely direct it to their money blueprint, the beliefs around that, the relationship with money, do a little rewiring, change that, upgrade it, and turn them into investors versus consumers. So that's a big piece of what we do. And it's not that difficult. It's just we're a product. We're like software, right? So did you ever have a piggy bank growing up?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So do you remember what you might have spent the money on when you opened that piggy bank, or what you did with it?
Probably sweets, so candy.
Yeah, right. So think about the mindset, right? Is save money, save money, save your money. Grandma gives you some money for your birthday. Put it in here, and hold back, hold back, hold back. Wait, wait. The child, that's difficult. And then what do? You smash the piggy bank and you spend the money. You don't invest the money, you spend the money. Very important manufacturing of our mindset. And so what I teach people and have taught my children is, if you're willing to delay gratification, save some money, and get your first piece of real estate as early as possible, 20 years later, you wake up, it'll be worth multiple millions of dollars. So that, teaching people how to change that. Number 2, energy is the edge. And having great energy is not something that's taught in school. In fact, the opposite is taught. We're taught to eat a Snicker bars at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because we're tired, which is actually the opposite of what we need. We drink Red Bulls, we do all those things because they're easy to get energy. Coffee, just look at all the coffee spots, right? Addicted to coffee because it gives us a shot, because we don't have a clear vision or purpose for our life. So we need some help to get energy. Energy comes from vision. Lack of vision, somebody will sell you something to artificially boost you, but you'll have a hangover later. Sadly, sometimes it's 20 or 30 years later when you have a hangover called diabetes or, heart condition or what have you, from consuming things that don't serve you. So we address people's energy levels and help them maximize their energy levels. And then thirdly, we work on communication. And when you work on those 3 things in an entrepreneurial level, within 2 to 3 years, we found that we can take people from broke to millionaire, from $200,000-300,000 worth of net worth to 2-3 million. And it's not about the money, it's who you need to become to create, attract, and keep that money, that mindset, and that healthy body and outlook. And so that's what I do.
I love it. What's the ideal mindset for somebody who wants to be successful in business or any field? What is the ideal mindset?
I'm going to answer that by telling you what the ideal mindset is not. The ideal mindset that is not is when you want to do it to make money. The best people I work with are people where money becomes a byproduct of doing something that serves people, or that you love, or that makes a difference. I had a guy who was a CPA, and he had a 6th son, and him, his wife, and his mother worked around the clock on different shifts because they needed to be with him 24 hours a day. So he had enough reasons to find a better way to live his life than earning $110,000 as a CPA. He came to me and he said, Rock, got a side hustle in photography. I got this business. My wife works a little bit. She takes care of the kid. My mom comes in and we all do these shifts. My life is a living hell. What can I do? So I said, well, let's get you into real estate. He goes, I don't have time. So first thing I did was I gave him my Sunday System for Success, which is a time management course, which teaches people how to gain 5 to 10 hours a week. And most people are like, I don't believe that. Right, because you're living a life where you haven't been exposed to it. I promise you I can gain you 5 to 10 hours a week. And you go, okay, that would be awesome. I go, well, what are you going to do with them? Well, in his case, what he did was he studied how to invest in real estate, how to invest in Airbnb. It was his dream to get a few Airbnbs. He got a few. And he took a course I teach on how to find your gifts. What are you really in flow in, right? And he found out that he had the gift of teaching. So long story short, 2 years later, he teaches people online how to do Airbnb. And he started off charging his students $200. Now he charges them $10,000. He has 2 boutique hotels, 28 doors all over the country in 4 different states that he manages from his phone. He's retired his wife, retired his mother, and his son is homeschooled and travels around the world with them whenever they go on trips to their different places. And so this is the type of thing that happens when you're exposed to the right content, is you can change people's lives because we are just product of our environment.
So another thing that I think you've spoken about is going through adversity and hard times. One of the things that I see as almost a requirement of success, but I'd love to know your opinion, is hard times and hardships. Like, is it something that we have to go through, whether it's willingly or we put ourselves through it?
What you have is you have the emotional intelligence to relate to people, right? Think about if there's a 45-year-old couple going through a divorce and they're going to go talk to a 22-year-old kid and get some therapy. He can't relate to what they've gone through. He has no kids. He hasn't lived for 10 years trying to, get a job, what have you. So there's no emotional intelligence there. The reason you want to deal with somebody who's, say, I don't know, an Olympic athlete in wrestling, and you're going to learn wrestling, is they might have worked for 4 years for a 3-minute match. They got 4 years of intelligence invested in focusing on a result that lasts 3 minutes that you're after. How much wisdom is there? There's a ton of wisdom, right? How much heartache is there? How many times have we heard the story of, the person who practiced for 4 years and pulled their hamstring 10 minutes before the 100-yard dash? They had to wait another 4 years. And then that person is a phenomenal coach because they know what it took to rehabilitate, etc. So yeah, I've been through divorces. I've been through bankruptcies. I've been through people that have partnerships and have not done their end of the partnership. I've broken multiple bones in my body. I've hyperextended my leg, had a cast on it, and stood on stage for 12 hours and still did the event. I could tell you, a million things I've done. Kids being sick, with me being sick and forcing myself out of bed. So the adversity creates the emotional intelligence, and the emotional intelligence creates the empathy to say, you got this. This is normal within the context, right? Have you ever run a marathon?
I have, yeah.
I was running this marathon. I don't know what it was like for you, but when I got to the 25th mile, that last mile felt like 100 miles. And I remember some guy who, God bless him, was sick, right? Can you relate?
Yeah, it was exactly like that for me, yeah.
So at that moment, when you've got 1 mile left, the words that you might want to hear is, the toughest part is over, and this upcoming part might seem daunting to you, but if you've done 25 miles, I believe in you. You got 1 more mile in you. Come on, buddy. Something like that. Instead, what I got was some guy drinking a beer, 70 pounds overweight, yelling at me, going, come on, man, you got this. You're almost done. It's easy. The way my brain was wired was like, screw you, buddy. You have no freaking clue what I'm going through. Had I had an ultra marathoner on the sidelines with 1 mile left, he could have related to me and probably read my mind and said the thing that would have inspired me, motivated me, touched me, made me feel like he knew what I was going through. And so for me, I've experienced, I lost $1 million in the stock market, not once, not twice. But when COVID hit, I surrounded myself with the right people, I was able to make, all of it back and more. It took me 25 years to get pretty good in the stock market. But remember, there's no winning and losing. There's winning and learning. It was 25 years of learning for me to get to a point to make millions of dollars in a short period of time. That was the cycle of my learning. Some people do it quicker. I'm maybe just on a little slower cycle. Some people are going to wait 20 years to buy their first piece of real estate. If they listen to me, I'm going to tell them, do everything you can.
The point I wanted to go on to actually there was you was talking about surrounding yourself with the right people at the time and having that right friendship group. How important is it, and how do you do that?
Yeah, so that might be the $1 million question, is we are products of our environment. And our parents said it, don't hang out with Johnny, he's a bad influence, right? So our parents knew better. But funnily thing is, as we grow up and we leave college and things like that, we're very unintentional about who we spend time with. And so we do an investment with our neighbor because we like them and we talk, over the barbecue twice a month, and or our brother-in-law, we want our sister to feel good that we're doing business with her husband. And so we do stuff like that. I've done it. It's really important that you find people that have the result that you want. You do your due diligence. And so, today I don't take advice in my investments from people that are worth less than 100 million. I'm in a place where I can do that. And these people have experience, they have that wealth for a reason, right? And so then when I'm talking to people about my investments, they're like, really? You can get like double your money in 2 years? I'm like, yeah, and you can do that. Like, how? And they're very skeptical. So surrounding yourself with people that have the result that you want and taking your time to collect those people, health-wise, relationship-wise, communication-wise, attitude-wise, wealth-wise, takes time. It just takes time. So you need to be intentional. Find your tribe. I created a mastermind group 8 years ago because I couldn't find adventurous people that were focused on winning the money game, weren't shy about talking about it, and also wanted to be very healthy. So I created my own environment and invited people into it. So if you can't find it, then create it. And it takes time, right? Start off with 6 guys. Now it's morphed into thousands of people.
How difficult is it when you've got close family, close friends, maybe people that you had before you started your journey, of getting rid of those people? Like, is it a thing that you have to drop people in order to become successful?
You got to understand, if you want a great life, like if you want to be really, really wealthy, you want to be really, really healthy, the people that are in your life currently that don't share those same goals are going to have to be left behind. It's just a matter of fact. You don't run a marathon in 2.5 hours by running with the people that run it in 5.5 hours. Right? You don't vacations with people that don't have money to go on long extended vacations. You don't eat plant-based food with a bunch of people that are not interested in nutrition and will put anything in their body. Right? So you've got to find the people that have the same values. And it is the number one influencer because humans were meant to connect and belong. And you will give up your values to connect and belong.
Wow.
We started to drink and smoke against our values. We hit it to be part of a gang or part of a group or part of a social club or whatever. And eventually we hit it and we had shame and we start down that rabbit hole and it gets complicated, right? So choose very wisely the environments you're going to go to because the environment will win.
So what particular things are you looking for in new friends, in people that you want to invest in yourself? What are you looking for?
I've got a few local masterminds that I'm part of, but I'm looking for people that are people that want to make a difference in the world.
Love it. We can see that over this whole lockdown and restrictions, there's been this huge divide of people who played the victim and people who played the victor. And we've seen extremely successful people come out of it on really, really on top. What is that mindset that is making people see? Is it something we have to go through to be able to see the win in everything and see the silver lining in everything?
The bottom line is that mindset comes down to overcoming the obstacles that are in your environment and deciding that you're going to do so without leaking energy. I'll give you a specific example. Have you heard of something called the shingles?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've had them.
What was that like for you?
Painful from what I remember. Yeah, it was quite painful. Yeah.
So some people will go through that and it will cripple them, debilitate them, it'll knock them out, and justifiably so. I got shingles 2 weeks ago. Right now, I am in massive pain on my chest and back. And you probably wouldn't know it unless I told you.
Mm.
And so that comes from a trained mindset of there's a job that needs to be done called this podcast. And nothing's going to stop me because I decide how I'm going to show up. And so I keep on telling myself I can overcome that. I can deal with it later, what have you. And this is the thing where when I teach in my men's group is who decides? And everybody points to themselves and says, I decide. I decide how I'm going to respond to this situation. I decide how I'm going to respond to an employee quitting, to somebody embezzling, to the market changing, to getting shingles, to breaking my leg. I decide how I'm going to respond. Winners decide in a way where they don't play the victim. How do I use this to my advantage? And so when you practice that and you're around people like that a lot, then it becomes normal not to not be upset, angry, frustrated, but not to live there.
Mm.
And that's the difference I find is successful people. The amount of time they focus on the problem is maybe 10%, and 90% is focused on the solution or getting better to handle the current problem that maybe is bigger than you. And those are the type of people that are fun to be around because they're like, okay, well, how else can we do this? Oh, what the vacuum cleaner for the pool doesn't work. Okay, well, maybe we can use the fishnet. Maybe we can dive down and clean the pool at the bottom and have fun holding our breath. And you know what I mean? They pivot and they find ways to win.
I love it. So yeah, talking about the specifically COVID and all the situation we've seen, there's been this huge divide, and it's interesting to see when crisis hits, whether it is like a pandemic or a crisis in your life, that we see the successful really shine and these people really shine. Is it something that we need to seek? Do we need to seek adversity or is life going to serve us with enough adversity that we can be successful anyway?
Life will serve you adversity, in my opinion, if you have no vision or goal, because life is about growing. So if you sit around on the couch all the time, one day you're just going to walk to the fridge, grab another beer, and you're going to trip and fall and break a leg, and now all of a sudden you have a new problem, right? If you just sit around waiting for people to solve your problems, you probably end up with no money and get evicted from your apartment. So problems are part of life. The problem is that most people look at their problems wishing they didn't have problems instead of realizing that the problems are there to serve them, to get them to grow. So then they fall victim, right? I don't like this problem. I don't want that boss. I don't want this to do my budget. I don't want to do my finances. I don't want to work out. So they have a long list of things they don't want to do. Where the person that is going to be the most successful, they decide on what is their goal, understanding that in order to run a marathon, you're going to have to work out 3 times a week. You have to get some new running shoes. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to go through some pain. So they choose adversity instead of letting adversity choose them. When you build a company, you choose the adversity of trying to interview and hire people to work for your company. It's a pain in the ass. Employees are a pain in the ass because they have an employee mindset. They don't have my mindset of make it happen no matter what, gut it through. I don't take sick days, right? They have the mindset of an employee. So you have to find the best employees, not the super really great ones because they're going to open up their own business. But you've decided that you're going to have to master the game of hiring and training people and managing them and keeping them happy. So adversity is a part of life, either by choice or by default.
Make it happen no matter what mindset. I like that. So, I mean, it's self-explanatory, but like, I'm guessing you've got some specific situations, so I'd love to hear some.
Well, I've got big ones and small ones, but a funny one is I was playing squash. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like racquetball, right?
Yeah.
Playing on a team, and I rushed from one appointment to the next. I got to the gym, and I didn't have my running shoes, and I was one of four people playing in this round robin, and I'm like, okay, I have to play this game. It's not like I don't have running shoes. So my brain went to solution, and I ran around the gym asking people if I could borrow their shoes. Nobody was willing to have the right size, what have you. So I went to Lost and Found. They had one pink shoe, a woman's shoe. And so I took my sock off, jammed my foot in, took the sole out, somehow jammed it in, and showed up with a bare foot and one pink shoe against my opponent. And the opponent was like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I forgot my shoes. I'm going to play like this." He goes, "You can't play like that." And I go, "There's no rule that says I can't play like this." He goes, "I know, but I'm going to crush you." And I go, "We'll see." And so just with that mindset, right, of make it happen no matter what, I had an edge on him because he had a limiting belief you can't play squash with one shoe. I don't have that. I don't entertain that. I have the belief of I'll play barefoot. I'll play with my left hand. I don't care. I will bring everything I have and find a way to win. And so that's a mindset, right? It's a belief system.
I'd love to hear in a bit like your how you've done pull that through in business.
So my father died when I was in my late 20s. I was a real estate agent, and I was paying off his debt from his illness and from his back taxes. I too had gone through a divorce. I sued the company I was working for in the airlines for wrongful dismissal. I lost a ton of money. I learned a lesson there. And I was on my mom's couch, $30,000 in debt. And I was looking for a way to get out fast. And so I decided to get into real estate, but I was really bad at real estate. So I struggled, and I worked part-time jobs to pay for gas for my car. And then I got this mentor who helped me get better and better at it. And within 4 years, I was selling 100 homes a year. I was the number one agent. He walked in my office one day and he says, "Rock, I'm going to sell you the company." I was still paying off debt. I didn't know how to read financial statements. I didn't know how to lead a company. I was still this kid just selling real estate. And I said to him, he goes, "Do you want to buy the company?" I said, "Yes." And inside I said, "Oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm going to die. I'm going to go bankrupt." But I just knew that I could figure it out. And so I have this big saying, say yes and figure it out later. So I became very focused, very coachable, very curious, very open. And I just learned a ton in the next couple of years. Bought this company, and I was making like $300,000-$400,000 as an agent. Next year, I made $1 million plus as a broker. I was running an agency with 94 agents. And within 4 years, I took it to 275 agents. Didn't know what I was doing half the time. I just kept on saying yes, figuring it out, learning, bluffing, acting as if, taking another course, learning a new language, saying, "Yes, I have the solution for you, but you know what? I got another meeting coming up in 5 minutes. Let me get back to you in a couple of hours." Buy some time, get on the phone, research, find the answer, come back to the person and say, "Here's the answer." So say yes and figure it out later is about being resourceful. Most people look at the lack of resources. I don't have the time, the money, the know-how, and they take themselves out. Successful people do the opposite. They put themselves in the arena. They put themselves in the situation that forces them to have a sense of urgency to find the solution. And then they go on a treasure hunt to find that solution. And they don't care about losing. They care about learning. And with that mindset, you can be an entrepreneur. You just get better every day until you find the solution.
So what I'm interested in there is just what did an average day look like? Like how are you juggling all of that, learning a language? What did the day look like to be able to get through that?
It was your typical successful day. Up at 5 o'clock, workout, meditate, exercise, sometimes with the kids, sometimes without, breakfast, drop the kids off at school, get to work by 7:30, 7:45, do an hour's worth of prep and prospecting before the day started. People rolled in around 9:30, handle problems for them, add value, run meetings, meet with people, go all day long, eat my salad in a Tupperware at my desk because first of all, it's more nutritional. Second of all, I had a belief at the time that lunch was for losers. And so I just powered through. And then I'd get home by 5:30 or 6 or 6:30 or 7 and eat with the family, spend some time, and then go back into my office and do some more prep work, learn, train, record, write part of my book, start a side hustle, what have you, and work until the wee hours in the morning. Or sometimes go out and play hockey or do something, or take my family out a couple of times a week. But most of the time it was 12, 14, 16 hours a day for a long period of time, until I had enough money that I didn't have to just run the business, but I could invest in real estate and other businesses. Today I have 44 streams of income. Most of them run on their own. But I really believe, unless you have some super intelligence, but even Elon Musk works 16 hours a day, right? Be obsessed or be average. Be obsessed and get really good, or be average.
Be obsessed. I love that. So with that, my only concern is the how that affects other people around you. And I know we touched on finding people who support what you're doing and are pushing for similar stuff. Do you feel like you take it too far at all with the obsession and the work ethic? Yeah.
Well, a lot of people around me will say that for sure, right? When are you going to chillax, you're not working again, you're not starting another business, right? You don't have to make a podcast, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, there are three opponents. There is the external opponent, that's your competition, that is all the things outside of your control, the weather, the economy, the interest rates, and those things you have to face head on. There is the internal opponent, that is your own mindset, your own inner narrative, or can I do it, your own self-doubts. But one of the ones that's the most difficult is the intimate opponent. And that's your family and friends that are like, your parents, like, oh, be careful, you might go bankrupt, or are you sure you want to do that? Or you're spending too much time at the office, or you spend more time with the kids. And so you have to learn how to manage all three of those opponents. And that's what we teach in my mastermind group, is how to have a powerful mindset and to delineate the three different enemies that are out there. They're starkly different, and they require a different skill set to work through, right? You can go head to head with your opponent and be really tough. Do that with your 7-year-old daughter, it doesn't go over so well, So you have to be able to shift gears, and you have to be able to roll with the punches. But at the end of the day, your mindset and your toolbox that you develop through personal development will help you do that more gracefully.
Okay, I love it. So now, if we was talking about your typical entrepreneur, young guy, a lot of our audience are 20 to 25 years old, maybe working a job or working their first business and getting some money in. What's your advice for those guys right now? Like what are most guys missing at that point in their career?
Well, first of all, the biggest thing I would look for is hunger. So my question would be this, is let's say like I'm working with somebody, I'm going to help them become a millionaire. I've helped 75, 76 people do it. I know the path, right? Would you say 76 people is a good enough of a path?
It's not bad, yeah. Yeah.
It's not like I'm a beginner at it, right?
Yeah.
So the number one thing I'm looking for is hunger. So I have questions. It's like, let's say I would say to you, Jordan, would you like to become a millionaire?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say, what are you willing to do to become a millionaire?
I work every day, every hour of the day, and put my all into it for sure.
Right. So which is a great answer, because you're willing to show up, right? So any version of whatever it takes, Rock.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Basically, if you have the formula and you have the path, right? If I'm going to be coached by, I don't know, Tiger Woods on how to play golf, and he goes, Rock, what are you willing to do? I'm going to train you. I mean, whatever you tell me to do, I will do. I won't even question it. Problem is, people want the easy route. So when somebody like me comes along and says, here's the plan, and here's what you need to do, and depending on who you are, you may really be really good with numbers, but not good with people. Or you may be really good with people, but not good with numbers. And guess what we're going to have to do? Is we're going to have to fix up some of those weaknesses until we can delegate them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So are you willing to do that? The answer needs to be, yeah, whatever, just put me on, coach. Tell me what to do. And so when we've established a baseline of hunger and coachability, then the rest is just plug and play. It's all it is, really. Like if you want to get a degree and become an engineer, say it's 4 years, They have the playbook. They're like, okay, you're going to go to, say Harvard. Your semester starts in September. It goes until December. Then you get 6 weeks off and you come back in January and it goes to April. You're going to do these assignments. You're going to study this. You're going to have to remember this, blah, 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 blah. And you need to do the work, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing to become a millionaire. I have the playbook. The question is, when you hit a roadblock, do you have somebody beside you that can say, Jordan, it's normal. Yes, you can't look at one real estate deal and buy the first one, right? My daughter's buying her first piece of real estate with her boyfriend, and she's reluctant and hesitant because that's what people are. When they hit their uncomfort zone is they tell themselves, oh, I'm tired. I want to, take a nap or go for a walk, when really they're just uncertain. You follow me?
Yeah.
And when they're uncertain, they're like, their brain is looking for a way to protect them. So they say, oh, well, let's watch a movie or let's spend time with the family. So I've been encouraging her to do it. Finally got her back on looking at properties with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend is, he's a professional athlete, so he makes good money. So they have no reason not to go ahead and purchase a property. But they have doubt. They have doubt because they don't know. And so they finally looked at a few properties. Dad, there's multiple offers. Should we just go in? And I go, no, you need to lose a few properties. You need to get emotionally associated going, that's the one we want. Understand the numbers, understand it's a good deal, and then underbid and have somebody else win it, because you're going to now develop that emotional muscle we talked about before, Jordan, right? What is it like to go on the roller coaster ride? Not watch the roller coaster ride, but be on it, right? And puke all over yourself or not. And so I want her to have reps, emotional reps, lose some deals, get close. Yeah, imagine placing the furniture in there. See yourself. Plant the tomatoes in the back garden and then have somebody rip that deal right in from you because you weren't prepared, right? And when you've done that 10 times, then we're going to know what is the right deal for you. So we have to teach them emotional fortitude. We have to teach them in the trenches when it's okay to fall down on your face and lose, because you're going to gain some emotional mastery. And so the reason that people don't succeed at the rate they could is because they never find a mentor that can day in and day out hold their hand. And that, people to get nothing else from this call, is the most important thing. How did you learn to ride a bike? How did you learn to speak? How did you learn to walk? Think about this. How did you learn to walk? Every day for 6 months or 9 months, you got up and you gave it 100% of yourself. You hung onto the corner of the coffee table, you stumbled, and somebody was there to go, you got this, Jordan, come on, buddy, good job. Oh, hey, look, Jordan's walking. Look, he took a step. Whoa. The energy that went into it was unbelievable. Just for you to take one step and then you failed. And then the next day you got up and you battled and you were enthusiastic and you brought everything you had and you did it for 6 months. And then we're adults and we're 23 years old and we want to look at one deal and we want it to be easy and we want to qualify for financing and we want the tenants to be perfect. Oh no, I don't want to fix a toilet. Don't call me at nighttime. I'm sleeping. I need my rest to get up in the morning and do my yoga. No, you need all of that adversity. But guess what? The difference is, Jordan, is when I'm standing there beside you and you get that call in the middle of the night with a broken toilet, and then you text me and you're like, I got the call, Rock. I'm like, good, let's go. We're gonna now develop a muscle. Here are your 3 choices. You can go over there and fix it yourself. You can call a plumber. Or, remember you said that your dad was really handy? Maybe it's time to reconnect with your dad and create that relationship and see if he can help you out here to build your empire. Door 1, 2, or 3, which way are we going, buddy? You're like, my dad's out of town, or I don't have a relationship with my dad or whatever. Let's go with the plumber. Great, it's gonna cost you about $175. That's my total profit on that deal. Yep, sometimes you're gonna have losing months. That's why you need to have a paying job so you can fill in the gaps. And while you fill in those gaps, there's 4 or 5 people that are about to sell a piece of real estate because they can't handle emotionally the ups and downs on this roller coaster ride called real estate that you are now weathering the storm for, because I'm holding your hand. And guess what? 2 to 3 years from now, you'll look back and you go, wasn't that big a deal, Rock? But thankfully you were there. And that is how you become a millionaire, is to go up and down the roller coaster ride with a mentor that's been there before that tells you, yeah, this sucks right now. But that's okay. That's why you're going to be paid the big bucks in 2 to 3 years, because you're going to develop the muscle to go through it when most people haven't. Make sense?
Yeah, it completely does. So for someone who has their finger on the pulse right now, this is me asking personally, is there a point of time in the market right now with housing and property? Do you think there's a point if you're trying to set up a business currently right now?
Sell a business?
To buy property, to do buy to lets, and right now,
Yeah.
do you feel it's safe to do so?
So first of all, people need to understand this, is real estate is a local market. I'll give you an example. Austin, Texas is a hotbed right now. It's a bit of the new tech center for people in Texas. Elon Musk has moved part of Tesla there. Apple has a place. I think Facebook does as well. Their real estate is going through the roof. And I remember being there 3 years ago, it was going through the roof and thinking, God, it's at a bubble. I don't want to buy now. But if you bought 3 years ago, you probably doubled the value of your real estate in 3 years. So first of all, real estate is local. So you need to understand what are the factors that affect it. Detroit City, where there's a lot of car dealerships, if the car dealerships are struggling, the real estate in Detroit gets hammered. So know your market. And the best way to do that is to deal with somebody that knows the market and has experience, right? So yeah, there's always a good time to buy real estate. I am currently in storage and industrial, got into it just before COVID started. And then we accelerated it because we saw what was happening. So we rent to people like Amazon and TJ Maxx and people like that. And so we buy properties that are usually mom and pop properties that are poorly managed, that have an upside. And within 3 to 6 months, we can usually increase the rents anywhere from 8 to 50%. And so we make a huge upside in the first, little while. We cash flow right away, but we know what we're doing. We have a whole PhD Harvard team that examines the properties. We know trends, we know circulation of population, we know housing, hospitals, transportation, and all of that's happening. We're looking at all these numbers, and if they don't check all 39 boxes, then we don't buy. But we are in a surge of buying right now. So you just have to know your market, be surrounded by people that know their market. And our average return, like I told you, is easily 35, 40% a year with depreciation benefits, et cetera, because we've been doing it for a long time. So yeah, there's always a time to buy real estate.
I love it. Okay, so I mean that's something I need to get my research on locally then for myself. But yeah, what's your advice for the young people who are trying to get into it, making that first step? Like, what was your first property deal? What age was you, and how did you get into it?
I was 24, just bankrupt a restaurant with the $20,000 I borrowed from my mom. Worked for 6 months for free there, had no money, not a pot to piss in, had a $200 red Toyota Tercel, and I got a job as a flight attendant in Quebec City. I had to drive up there and rented a room in a lady's house for $200 a month on the promise to pay her at the end of the month because I had this new job as a flight attendant. Got a job parking cars at a hotel, and then started looking for real estate and found this privately for sale house for $62,500. I put $2,000 cash down on my Visa card because I had no money. I got a balance of sale, vendor financing. Owner was the bank for, I think it was $62,000 or $60,000. And I paid them monthly, but I had 4 people in the house that were renting rooms. So with the money I made from the people renting the rooms, and I had one little room, I was able to pay for all the expenses of the house, all of my food, all of my cable, TV, everything, and have money left over to save about $1,000 a month. But I had no living expenses. Took all the money I earned as a flight attendant, parking cars, and paid my mother back the $20,000 in 18 months, and then bought another property 3 times the size and just kept on flipping and going from there. So what's the secret? I shared a house with 5 people. I lived below my means. I sacrificed my personal lifestyle to gain a future. that was going to change my life forever.
So the last one that I just wanted to ask you is like the way you've just spoken about what it took for yourself personally, like living below your means. What does it take, like in terms of like the living situation, living below your means, like a description for somebody, paint a picture for us, like what does it take?
Yeah, so great question. One of my favorite questions, because I've got this great analogy, is that in life, if you stop earning income, do your expenses stop? And the answer is no, because you probably want to eat, right? There's a few breatharians in the world, but most people choose to eat. And you probably want a bed and a roof over your head unless you're in prison where it's paid for by somebody else. So I broke it down into 5 elements: food, transportation, housing, discretionary spending. That's if you want to go and buy yourself 14 golf clubs or whatever you want to do. And then what I call subscriptions, your monthlies, right? Your telephone bill, your maybe your cable, whatever, subscription to Netflix, all those things. Your goal is to win that game. So just look at each one as a game. What are you going to do when it comes to food? Well, you can go and have lobster and champagne every night. You're probably going to lose that game. Transportation. Do you want to drive a Ferrari and have high insurance and et cetera, or can you get a very decent car that gets you from A to B, but costs you $200 a month instead of $2,000? And the same for housing, and the same for discretionary. You don't need Netflix. You don't need anything. In fact, if you want to build your empire, stop watching TV for 3 years, right? You get the news on social media. So you can really trim and cut if you want to, depending on your motivation. So I just break it into those 5 categories, and we say, increase what you earn by getting a side hustle or 2 jobs or getting a raise. Decrease what you burn, what you spend. So the gap is savings that you invest into real estate. And that's a formula. It's as simple as that. And it's based on the same thing I talked about before, Jordan. How hungry are you? I lived, when I was young as 7 people, most of my life I lived with barely enough food on the table. When you live in close to feeling like there's not enough, that's enough to piss you off, at least in my case, that I went out and I worked 16 hours a day so I could save money to invest. That's where my pain turned into my passion and turned into today, 44 streams of income. But sometimes people don't have the adversity that I have, so they're just like comfortable. And they've got parents that, oh, don't work so hard, come over on Sunday and we'll cook and I'll do your laundry for you. And so it's harder for those people to get motivated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it really does. I mean, there's so much to go through. Where would people find all your information? Where's the best place to get all this information from?
So the best place to go to is rockthomas.com, which is my website. Really any social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, you'll find Rock Thomas. But social media is weird these days. So I suggest you go to the website. And you can also go to my YouTube channel and get lots of free training and information there. If they want a sampling of myself, they can get my free book. They can go to rockthomas.com/free book and get a copy of the book that helped me transform my identity from working hard to working smart, from skinny little ugly kid to ruggedly handsome. There's ways that you can upgrade your identity and really impact your behavior, because you will not, Jordan, behave in any way other than how you see yourself. Mm-hmm. Do you smoke?
I don't know.
So if I offered you cigarettes, you probably wouldn't go, well, what brand are those? Yeah, let's smoke. You'd say I'm a non-smoker, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to say to me, hey, Rock, why don't you not pay your Visa bill at the end of the month? I would say, because I pay my bills on time. And it really pisses me off to pay penalties. So it's an automatic payment. It happens whether I'm awake, active, or even dead. It will happen next month because I pay my bills. That's who I am. So if you want to change the outside results in your life, Jordan, you want to be a millionaire, or you want to be fit, or you want to be healthy, or you want to laugh more, or you want to have more energy, you got to first change how you see yourself. That's step number 1. Be the guy who manages money well. Be the type of person that exercises first thing in the morning if you want to have better health. Be the type of person that studies nutrition. Not haphazardly going, well, I think Snicker bars are good for you. I don't know, but I'm not dead, right? So I teach people first how to change the inside identity and then how to bump up against the adversity in the outside world. We coach them through the adversity, letting them know it's normal, and then let them come out the other side as an expanded identity as a whole life millionaire. So what we say is we build whole life millionaires.
I love it. And everything's going to be linked down below. So if people need the resources, please go check it out. I feel like we need to pick this conversation up. So where are you based?
Based in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
I have a place in Canada as well. Where are you?
The UK, but we travel to the States a lot. It's just at the moment, it's not something we've been able to do very often. But when we do, I would love to come and interview you in person and do a lot of filming with you. That would be pretty fantastic.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, and you should come to one of our events. And we have members in the UK. Do you know Nick Bradley, who hosts the podcast Scale Up?
I've heard of Scale Up. Yeah.
I should introduce you to him. You should have him on your podcast. He's a great guy. He's from England, and he's huge on Clubhouse. If you're part of Clubhouse,
no, I need to get into it. Yeah, I've heard of great things.
So he'd be a great guy for you to know. We've got a small little group of members in the UK. I don't know, maybe they like my Canadian accent or something like that. Who knows? But yeah, it's a global group. And I think you have a lot of people that follow you and want to learn more. I'm more than happy to contribute and help out in any way I can.
Amazing. Honestly, it's so amazing because I think one of the things we definitely lack in teaching the people who watch our stuff is finances as well. And I don't think it's emphasized enough about how important it is to be financially free and what
it's kind of like a taboo subject in certain environments. And so we've kind of taken the taboo off of it and said, hey, listen, you know, if you're going to win the money game, you got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you got to break the shackles of the unconscious programming. So I would love to follow up with you maybe and talk a little bit later. I've got a hard stop in like 3 minutes and just stay connected and see whatever you can do to support each other.
Fantastic. Okay, wicked. What I'll do is once all this stuff's done, I'll get it all sent through to you. You can have a look at it as well. And then definitely we'll just stay in touch and hook something up next time we're out there. I'm hoping sooner rather than later, but we're just waiting on some government changes at the moment so we can fly. So that's just a limiting factor. But as soon as that's ready, yeah, that'll be fantastic.
Beautiful. Well, it will happen at some point in time. And when it does, then hopefully we get a chance to meet face to face and pour into each other's lives.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time as well. It really is appreciated.
Cheers. All the best to you, Jordan.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye.